Hi everyone, I'm back with a new series of videos on linear equations in two variables. So the first thing we're going to talk about before we get to the title of this video, Graphing by Plotting by Points, is we're going to talk about the general form of a line. The general form of a line is what you hear on the screen, and notice that your book does not call it by this specific name, but this is standard terminology, so this is something I expect you to know. If I say the general form of a line, I would expect you to know this is ax plus by plus c, where the x and the y, they are variables, and the a, the b, and the c are constants, and these constants have a certain condition, that both a and b cannot be 0 at the same time. So why this condition? So let's look at a equals b equals 0, but c is not 0. So if we do that, we're going to get 0x plus 0y equals c. And c is not 0, but this thing on the right is 0 because we'll get 0 plus 0 equals c, and we'll get 0 equals, sorry, that was supposed to be a c, so we'll get 0 equals c, which is false, and this leads to a contradiction. So there's no solution when a and b equals 0 and c is non-zero. It's always false. So let's look at a equals b equals c, all equal to 0. Well, we'll get 0x plus 0y equals 0, and this side is 0, so we get 0 equals 0, which is an identity, which we talked about identities for one variable equations. Well, when we have two variables and we have an identity, the solution is the entire xy plane, and the entire xy plane is not a line. And by the way, if you ever see this online, this symbol right here is the same thing as the xy plane. This is just mathematical notation. Just in case you see it online, we won't use it in this course. Alright, so that's, and then whenever a and b are both not 0, one of them can be 0, but not the other. So we'll see what happens when a equals 0, but b is not, and b equals 0, and a is not in a future video, and they lead to special kind of lines. But most of the time, a and b are both not going to be 0, and these gives us most of the lines that we're familiar with. So let's look at an example on graphing here. So plotting points is going to be the method we're using in this section, and this is very similar to what we did in the group work on Thursday, is that we're going to make a table of values, and these are going to give us points on the line. So the first thing we have to do is make the table. So we're not going to be given tables this time like we were with previous problems. There we go. Didn't run right. I recommend at least 3 points because of this note right here. If your line isn't straight, you made a calculation error, but 2 points always make a straight line. So if you make 3 points, if you made a calculation error, chances are that point is not going to lie on the same line as the other 2 points, and you can quickly check your work. But I do recommend about 5, so you can, because drawing a straight line, especially when your points are spread out, is a little bit difficult. So the more points you can draw through, the easier it is to draw the straight line as straight as possible. So I do recommend 5, but you should have at least 3. Once you plot over your points, so that's the next step, then you just connect them with a line. So very easy to do, so let's look at an example. We have 2x plus 3y equals 6x, so I'm going to change my color here real quick, and we'll make our table of values first. So because I've done this already ahead of time, I know that for my x values, I want to make these multiples of 3, so -6, -3, 0, 3, and 6. So we need to figure out the corresponding y values because they will tell us what coordinate xy to plot. So we need to figure out the y values. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at 2x plus 3y equals 6. And we're going to start off with this negative 6 here. And plug it in here for x. So when we do that, we're going to get 2 times negative 6 plus 3y equals 6. And now we can multiply the 6 and then, the 2 and the negative 6 together to get a negative 12 plus 3, and then the 3y comes along and the 6 stays the same. Now we're going to add 12 to both sides to get all the constants on one side. And these cancel, and we're just going to get a 3y equals 18. Then we can divide both sides by 3, and we get that y equals 6. And so that's what we're going to put in for y. And now we know what the x coordinate is. So let me pick a different color. So we know that this is x is negative 6, and when x is negative 6, we get y equals 6, so the point we get is negative 6, 6. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the other parts of the calculation, but they all go very similar. You'll take the negative 3, plug it in for x, you'll get a value. Same thing with the 0. The negative, or the, I shouldn't do that because they look like negatives, but so you do the same thing with the 0, the 3, and the 6, and the values you get are 4, 2, 0, and negative 2. So let's clean up this table just a little bit. Nice thing about having a video is you miss something, you can go back. So the other values we're going to get are negative 3, or the other points rather, are negative 3, 4, 0, 2, 3, 0, and 6, negative 2. So these are the points we are going to plot. And then assuming they all form a straight line, meaning we made no calculation errors, we'll just connect them all with the line. So let's go ahead and graph that. Let me turn back to my other color, and let's turn on the grid here. So let me draw in an x-axis, y-axis, and let me see, we're going up to 6, so I better make just each individual square one by one. There. So let's plot our points. We're going to go to negative 6, 6. So we have to go into 6 back, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so here is our point, negative 6, 6. The next we're going to go to negative 3, so 1, 2, 3, and then up 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is the point negative 3, 4. Then we're going to go to 0, 2. So 0 means we're going to stay on the y-axis and just going to go up 2. So here's the point 0, 2. Our next point is 3, 0. So we're going to go to the right 3. But then the 0 and the y-coordinate means we just stay on the x-axis. And so here is our point 3, 0. And then lastly, our final point was 6, negative 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and down 2. And this is the point 6, negative 2. So that part here was step 2 we just finished. So we now need to do step 3 and just connect them all with the line. So let's see if I can do this with any decency on here. And the nice thing about having so many points is it gives you a place for your eye to go that's not so far. If you just had these 2 points, that's kind of hard for your eye to track. So having these extra points in the middle helps me draw the line straighter. And this is our graph.